open my heart, illumine me, Spirit divine.
Thank you, Carol. I'm always thrilled when Carol's here. Well, I'm not Reverend Gary Kanye, you know that. Reverend Gary's house guest, Margie, was visiting from Hawaii and was tested positive for COVID on Sunday. So he is staying out to keep us healthy. Owen's going to give you fist bumps from afar with a mask because he wants to keep us healthy. So tag, I'm it. And I'm thrilled to be here with you. So my talk title today is What's in Your Glass? So I happen to have a little glass. We're going to have visual aids today. This is going to be fun. I have a glass here. It's filled about midway with water. What's the question I'm going to ask you? Half full or is it half empty? So if it's half full, I'm an optimist, right? I'm always looking at what I have. If it's half empty, I'm the pessimist and I'm going, I don't have very much. Well, I'm a realist. This glass is refillable. Okay? But that's not my question today. My question of you is this. How heavy is the glass I'm holding? So it depends on, Carol says 8 ounces. So you could come up with different measurements, right? But it really kind of depends on where I hold the glass. If I hold it like this with both hands, I can carry this all day long, right? If I carry it right here with one hand, I'll have to think I'm a little close here. If I carry it like this with one hand, then it's a little heavier. If all service I tried to hold it out like this, it gets a lot heavier, doesn't it? That's what we carry every day, isn't it? Oh, and am I too close? In a minute. I need 2 hands for now. We'll go to the mic in a second. So right now, if I hold it out here, I can probably do that for a few minutes, right? It's not too bad. But this kind of represents our lives and what we carry all day long with us, right? Stress, different things that burden us. So what are some of the stressors we have in our lives? Tell me some of the stressors we have in our lives. Work. Wow. Money. Children. Should have 10 rocks for that. Parents. Relationships. Okay, so now I've added all these different things in here. Water level's going up. It's a little heavier. But I got to carry this all day long, don't I? And it's going to get heavier and heavier and heavier. Now, I would be brilliant if I could tell you how to remove all the stress in your lives, but I'm just not that smart. Okay? But I can give you some tips on how to control and how we can cope with those things that burden us throughout our lives. We're going to... These rocks that I've placed down here, and I will now go to the mic. Oh, and let me just dry my hands off a little bit. Can you hear me now? Okay. These rocks I've had for probably 20 years, and this is just a very small number of the rocks that I have collected over the years. Each rock has a word on it, and each word has significance. When I was working actively in San Diego at the Navy in personnel and human resources, I put a rock in my pocket every day, and I had a tray that had probably 50 rocks on it, and they were all turned upside down, so I couldn't see the rock. And every morning I'd pick up a rock, put it in my pocket. Sometimes I'd look at it, sometimes I wouldn't. And by divine synchronicity, every single day of my working life that I had that rock in my pocket, somebody would come up to me, because it was well known. My nickname was K-Mac. K-Mac's got a rock in her pocket. So what's today's rock? And I'd reach in and I'd pull the rock out, and it would mean something to me, to the person I was with, or to a circumstance that was going on at the center. It was just, that to me is just divine synchronicity, because I never chose those rocks. I just picked them up randomly. Now, in the job I had, it's human resources, which is not always the easiest job in the world. And I was a supervisor over 15 people on my team. I had a collateral duty of teaching what we called HR, Human Resources 101. And every week, we held a class, and that class had 25 to 30 students, and I had to line up what the curriculum was and get the slides together and have all the printouts and have it, if I wasn't teaching, have an instructor for the day. A lot of stuff going on at one time, and a lot of personalities, a lot of people to deal with. And people, I love being around people most of the time. And there's some people I like to say hello to and move on because they're not always the easiest to be around. Now, Connie, Megan, and I all worked at the same place. Connie had a woman in her team, Erica, dear friend of ours. And Erica and Connie had a woman on their team. A very small group of people, but there was one woman, Kim, who just liked to push everybody's buttons. If you used a deodorant with a certain fragrance, she'd complain that it was choking her. I mean, she was that ridiculous about things. And Erica had a particularly difficult time dealing with Kim. And she came to me one day and she said, how do you deal with all these personalities and maintain your cool? And I said, well, I've developed a little thing that I do. So the first thing I do when I'm being faced in a confrontational situation, and it takes a fraction of a second, is to slow, deep breath, and then mentally I would step back and step up and view that situation from a different perspective, from a higher level, and ask myself this question, and this is all a fraction of a second time after I worked on this a long time. Ask myself this question, how do I want to show up in this moment? Because every moment of our lives, whether we realize it or not, is a defining moment. I just met a few people here today for the first time. That's my defining moment. You're either going to love me, you're going to hate me, or you're going to go, she's all right. But that's my first impression on these people, on all of you. It's your first impression. It's how your spouse or your child reacts to how you said what you said, regardless of the intention behind it, right? So how we want to step up. So these rocks mean a lot to me. They always have things that I look at that I want to look forward. So the first rock that I have says listen. This is one of the first rocks I actually got. I think my first 3 rocks were think, teach, and listen. Think and teach were great. Listen was a lot more important than the rest of those. So when we listen, we have to listen to a lot of things all at one time. First and foremost is that still small voice. That still small voice within that is having a constant dialogue with us, whether we realize it or not. And it's that still small voice that we want to really respond to more than anything. William D. House, famous American author, said this, "It is the still small voice that the soul heeds, not the deafening blasts of doom." I love those words, the deafening blasts of doom. Because they really are, aren't they? And what do we know? What do we sometimes hear first? The deafening blast of doom, right? When that happens, we have to really be careful of our self-talk. And we talk to ourselves all the time. The other day, I set the coffee pot up for the next morning, and I set the timer to go off at 7:50, and I did it at 7:40 in the morning, which means that 10 minutes later, the coffee pot went off again. But the pot wasn't under it, so you can imagine the mess. And I'm sitting there going, Kathy, you idiot, what are you doing? I'm telling myself what I think about myself at that time. It's not good, it's not healthy. Be careful of your self-talk. I don't know how many of you might go to the New Braunfels farmers market on Saturday mornings. There's a wonderful woman there named Grammy. And Grammy sells pickles. I'm not a pickle eater, but I love her pickles. And she and her husband are there, and they're the sweetest people you ever want to meet. And I don't know, last year sometime, Grammy came up to me and she said, I have cancer. And I heard that and it was like, ooh. Because I'm a survivor myself. And I said, Grammy, can I make a suggestion to you? Instead of saying I have cancer, why don't you say I was given a diagnosis of cancer? Because then you don't have to accept the gift. You can decline it. You don't have to own that. So when things like that come up, think about how you want to approach it and how you want to say it to yourself. And she's in remission now. She's doing great. We saw her 2 weeks ago, and I'm just thrilled that she's doing wonderfully. But Think about your self-talk. Listen to the still small voice. Ignore the deafening blasts of doom, which means don't watch the news right now, okay? Now, the next rock that I picked up is courage. Courage has a lot of different meanings for a lot of different people, right? We have to have the courage to acknowledge that we have these stressors in our life that bring us down a little bit. Some people go around with their head in the sky in a little bubble. No, I'm fine. Everything's great. I'm doing fine. I saw a little meme on Facebook with a thumb sticking out of the water saying, I'm fine. I'm fine. And it really spoke to me because how many do it? How are you doing today? Oh, I'm great. I'm great. And you feel like crap and nothing's working well in your life, but you're going to tell everybody, I'm fine, as opposed to being vulnerable and open and having the courage to say, you know, I'm not having a great day. So if you could just keep me in your thoughts, it'd be really appreciative. Have courage to do that. Mark Twain said this about courage. Courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not the absence of fear. We're going to have fear in our lives. And some fear is good. Some fear is healthy. You walk up to a hot stove, you're going to have the fear of getting burned, so you're going to exercise caution. That's a good fear to have. If I'm going to go out to Common and try and cross the street, I'm going to watch both ways, because I have a fear if I don't, I might get hit by a car. But fear, which is often referred to as forget everything and run, fear can be something that we can overcome, or at least accept and move beyond. Okay? We have to be able to move beyond. I think it was Marianne Williamson that once said, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. And we are powerful. We are very powerful people. We wouldn't be here today having faced the adversities that this room collectively has had in their lifetimes if we weren't powerful and didn't have courage. The next rock I have is believe. Why are we here today? Do we have similar beliefs in the same divine, the same higher power, the same God? Whatever you want to call it. I had a minister in San Diego that used to say, it's the cosmic muffin. So it really doesn't matter what you call God. I think we're all here because we do believe that there's something larger, something greater than we are, and that we come together to worship that, to worship for that purpose. So you have to believe. You believe in God, you believe in others, you believe in your spouse, but most importantly, you have to believe in yourself. You really have to believe in yourself because it is so important for us to understand the potential and the power we have. Reverend Eric Butterworth, one of my favorites in Unity Ministers, says this: the greatest mistake is in believing that we are only human. We are human in expression, but divine in creation and limitless in potentiality. How many of us realize that we are children of God? We are one with the one. We are the microcosm within the macrocosm, so we are part of God. That's a powerful thing. And we say it and we'll recite it, but how many of us take it to heart? That everything in this world, all the good is here for us because of who we are, because of whose we are. We have to always remember that. Now, the next rock I picked out was trust. We have to trust in the process. We have to trust ourselves. We have to trust in God. We have to trust one another. I worked for somebody one time that said, you got to earn my trust. You got to earn my trust. When I was a supervisor, my thing was, I'm going to trust you until you give me a reason not to. Because that to me endeared my staff to me a lot better. I'll trust you. I'm going to trust that you know how to do the job, or that you're going to come to me when there's questions. If there's an issue, you're going to come to me and say, hey, I don't understand how to do this. I'm going to trust you to do that. Now, if you flop through something and don't ask questions and you knew you didn't know, we're going to have a little conversation about that. But I'm going to trust you first and foremost. Because I don't think God came up and said, well, I made you. I don't trust you yet. Right? God gave us free will. God gave us everything available possible and didn't say, I'll let you use it when I trust you about it. We need to have that same respect for others. We need to learn to trust. Now, I'm not a huge basketball fan, but Michael Jordan is certainly somebody to be admired. He said, to achieve greatness, you must trust the process and have unwavering belief in your abilities. Unwavering belief. How many of us can say that about ourselves? I have unwavering belief. When I was asked to talk today, did I have unwavering belief that I wouldn't make any mistakes? Oh, no. No, I didn't, I'll be honest with you. But I also had trust and belief that I'm with my spiritual family and it didn't matter. But you have to have unwavering belief. You absolutely do. Now, the last rock, and this is my wife Connie's favorite word, especially over the holidays. We have this word all over at Christmas time. Deb, say it out loud. Joy. Absolutely. Joy. So we had this burden that we're holding out, and it gets heavier and heavier. And depending upon what's in there, it can be loss in a family, it can be financial strife, it can be health issues. How do we find joy? How do we find joy in the muck and mire we go through every day? We had a recent loss in our family. But on Friday morning, actually we were doing this when I got the call from Gary for today. Connie and I sat having coffee on the back porch, and the deer were out there, and all of a sudden it was just so still and silent. And the only thing we could hear was the song of a multitude of birds out in the back in the trees, and the slight breeze hitting the wind chimes in the garden. In the face of everything else, we found joy in that little moment. We found joy in that little moment because it was something that gives us joy. Sometimes I'll be flipping through my phone or on Facebook, and I'll see a picture of a baby, and I'll click the sound up, and I hear laughter. How can somebody say the laughter of a baby, especially little belly laughs, how can that not bring you joy? Or a picture of a cat, you know. I get joy when my dog comes up on my lap and I'll say, do you want to go? And her ears perk up and she tilts her head. You know how dogs do that? So it doesn't have to be that you just won the lottery to bring you joy. It just has to be the little things in life. And if you look for them, even if you don't look for them, you're just open to them, there is a tremendous amount of joy. I got joy when Gary said, would you speak on Sunday? I got joy when I saw all of you come in today. So you just have to really look for the things that bring you joy in your life. Joseph Campbell was a famous author and was involved in a lot of the different New Thought teachings. I love his quote on joy. Find a place inside where there is joy, and the joy will burn out the pain. The joy will burn out the pain. But the thing about this is we have to be receptive to it. We have to be open to the fact that there is joy, whether we want to look at it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, there is joy in our lives. And we have to be open to receive it. And when you are open to receive it and you allow that joy to come in, it's going to burn out the pain. Doesn't mean pain's always going to go away, but it will burn out that pain. And the more you open yourselves up to the good that's in our lives and not focus on that deafening blast of doom, because those are temporary, aren't they? How many of us have had a deafening blast of doom that has lasted for years? But could you find joy in those times? Yes. And for that moment, that joy burned out that pain. So that's what I encourage you to do, is to look for the joy, look for what brings you that sighing moment where you go, okay, it's not going to be all bad forever, because there are good things in my life. There's good things for me to look at. So whether your glass is half full or half empty, whether it's refillable, no matter how heavy it gets, there are ways for us to cope with and to deal with all these different things. We just have to look for them. So I have a challenge for you this week for personal explorations. This week, take time to evaluate what you focus on and make it worthy of your time. Everyone is worthy. We are children of God. We are worthy and valuable to each other and to God. We are worthy. So if you're going to take time to focus your attention, to focus on something, make sure it's worthy of you and your time. Okay? Thank you. Namaste.